So Robert, can you hear me clearly? Because I'm not able to understand if you all are able to hear me clearly or if I'm audible or not. You can just put down in the chat if you can hear me, yes or no. Dr. Mohit, am I audible?
Yes, Deeksha.
Okay, okay. It would be great if the participants also respond uh, when we do the sessions. Okay, so we should be beginning right now because it's almost time. Welcome back to the fourth session for NGS Omics Logic training in Africa. And before we start today's session, I wanted to go over the progress and address some issues that have been coming up. So I'll just take you all to the forum page and see all the different things that we have been doing this past week. So we are already in week 2 of the program. So as I was reviewing everyone's progress, I just see that Robert has been doing really well. So I posted some comments for all the people who I saw that they were performing well. So you could see some of my comments right down here. And what was very exciting to see was this graph, as you can see. So this is all of the progress that you have done together as a group. And it's really incredible to see how much you all have been doing this past week. So this is really great to see everyone and very well done. So congratulations to everybody. You all are doing really great. As I can see that everybody is quickly completing so many of these courses, running the server, doing some of the code platform lessons also, which is wonderful. And I know that there are many questions which are coming up. So we will also address those questions in the session. And this is really great. There is just one thing that I would want to point out for a few people, which I notice, like, for example, here, Abbas, in your profile, even Ilya had left a comment that you need to update your full name and also a profile photo. The reason you need to update your full name is because as you're completing the different courses, you will get certificate for these individual courses as well, and not just the program certificate. So if you do not have your full name updated, the name in your certificate will appear as what it has been here. So you finished Introduction to Genomics, right? So let us have a look at the certificate and how it looks like, and the reason why everybody should update their profiles. And also, it is a great way for each of you to go out and connect with another person, learn more about them through these profiles, because see, it's going to be appearing as this, and you do not want that to happen, right? So you have to just go under your profile and you will find an edit button where you can edit your name and also add a photo. So please update it. Even for Dr. Giva, please go ahead and update your profile. Like you see here, I just wanted to show you an example. So Robert's profile is completed. He has added a photo. He has his full name updated here. So that is like a complete profile. And it also helps you to see the person who you are part of the program together, right? All of you are taking this course together. So it could be a good possibility to collaborate with each other, to find out about more contacts in your domain. That is what this entire bioinformatics community is all about. And here we have a few more profiles which need to be updated. And one more thing that I wanted to point out is you see that TJ has only 100 points, which means that there were no courses done and none of the pipelines were run. So unless you do the courses or you do the pipelines, you will have a problem when it comes to getting the entire program certificate. So you see, anybody who will have over 10,000 points during the entire length of the program will automatically receive a certificate of excellence, whether or not you attempt a project. But if you do not have that certificate of excellence, or if you do not have, over 2,000 points, it is difficult to give you a certificate of completion also, because everybody else would then be doing some of these courses and achieving the certificates, right? So please update your profiles. The second thing was a question that came up, I guess, when Adikunle had reached out to a few participants, and that was that these are all YouTube links, and we paid money to take this course. So, and this is being shared with everyone. Just to let everybody know, all these sessions are not shared with anybody. These are part of a private YouTube list. So the reason we use YouTube to upload the videos from the Zoom sessions is because if I share the Zoom file with you, it will be very heavy. And YouTube is an easy link. You can just put it on a private playlist and you will have the entire playlist for this program, which we can again share later, and it will not be deleted. So that is another advantage. You can have these videos not only now, not only in the next month, but also 6 months later, because we will not be deleting those. So this is all that I had to address today. And now I would be stopping the screen share and passing it on to Dr. Harpreet. Dr. Harpreet, over to you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Peepsa. So just let me share my screen. So hello everyone. So I welcome back you all to the NGS Omics Logic Training Program. So in continuation to this program, today's session is dedicated to big data problems. Here our focus will be remain on statistical and machine learning analysis for the complex gene expression data. So in today's session is about statistical approaches for data analysis and the correlation between clinical manifestations of disease and molecular patterns that it defines. We will also review the data exploration using dimensionality reduction approaches. So before heading into today's session, let me review what we have learned in our last session. So in the last session, we started with the transcriptomics processes. Then we got an overview of the splicing. Next, we learned about the different methods that are used for the quantification of the mRNA. Subsequently, we learned about the NGS RNA-seq technique. Next, we learned about the various steps that are required for RNA-seq data analysis. Here we also learned about the different algorithms that are employed to perform RNA-seq analysis. Next, we demonstrated to you how we can run the pipeline in the T-Bioinfo platform to produce a gene expression table from the raw reads. Then we understand about the various aspects of the table, that what it represents, like where are the samples and where are the genes. So at the end of the last session, we have asked you to complete these assignments. So were you able to finish some of these assignments? Just post your answer in the chat. So are you able to complete these assignments? Okay, Irene. And anyone else? Okay, Robert, that's great. Aditayo. Okay, that's excellent. So anyone else? I think 3 of you. I think that's great if you're able to complete these assignments, or at least partially Hamza. Okay, that's great. So So let me ask you questions regarding the last session and see how much you understand about RNA-seq analysis. So which of following are the two algorithms that can be used before the mapping? PCR clean, Primomatic A, then the B clean primer, Isoless, and C Eco and the Ajar, D Botai 2 and the PCR clean. Kingston Additoire A, Robert A, Hamza. Okay, excellent. So you all are correct, and it is option A. So the next question, what output you will get by running this pipeline? So just look at this pipeline and then let me know what output we will get. A PCA plot, B differentially expressed genes, C gene expression table, D genome visualization. So just look at this pipeline and let me know what output you will get. The C, Additoire C, Kingston C. Oh, that's excellent. So yeah, you all are correct and it's the gene expression table. So which of following statement regarding transcription process is correct? First, the central dogma of the molecular biology describes the two-step process, transcription and translation, by which the information in the genes flow into the protein, that is from DNA to RNA then to protein. So transcription is the synthesis of an RNA copy of a segment of DNA. RNA is synthesized by an enzyme that is called DNA polymerase. Then the second option, central dogma of molecular biology describes the three-step process, replication, transcription, translation. So then where information is flows into the DNA, RNA, protein, and transcription is the synthesis of an RNA copy of a segment of the DNA. RNA is synthesized by enzyme RNA polymerase. Then the option C, that is sum total of all messenger RNA molecules expressed from the genes of an organism are produced during the transcription, with exactly none of these RNA molecules being produced during the translation. And D, more than one answer is correct. And you can also tell me which one is correct. Two. So yeah, two is correct, but I think there are the better answer would be the C at two and the three both are correct. So eventually answer would be more than one answer. So now let's begin with today's sessions. So during the last session, as a result of running the RNA-seq pipeline, we got in a table of gene expression table. So in this session, we will be talk about the approaches that are important for the working with our gene expression table and how we can prepare this data for the downstream analysis. So this gene expression table contains the value of the RNA in terms of FPKM values. So now let's understand what is FPKM, RPKM or the TPM. So depending on the input data and the quantification approach we selected, this quantified RNA value can be of FPKM, RPKM, TPM or the read counts. So FPKM is indicated fragments per kilo base million. Then RPKM indicated reads per kilo base million. TPM indicating transcripts per kilo base million. So how we can compute them? So for instance, here the number of the reads that are mapped on a genome, you just count them, then divide with the total number of the mapped reads in the million and divide with the gene length in the kilo base. So RPKM and FPKM are very similar. The only difference is that RPKM is made for a single end RNA-seq data where every read corresponds to a single fragment that was sequenced. While the FPKM is actually for the paired and RNA-seq data. So with the pair and RNA-seq data, there are the two reads that correspond to a single fragment. So based on that fragment, we call this fragments per kilo base million, that is FPKM. Then the TPM is the similar to the RPKM and the FPKM. That is the difference only here. We are not talking about the reads or the fragments. Here we are talking about the transcripts. So before we start looking for the specific genes that are important, so we need to summarize our data, full data. So let's talk about some of the normalization methods that are used for the gene expression data analysis. So first thing that we are going to talk about is the box plot. So what do they actually represent? A box plot shows different statistics about our samples. So it shows median, then interquartile range, and then it shows the lower and the upper quartile value. Then it gives us a minimum and the maximum value. And it also gives us the information regarding the outliers that go beyond these values. So conclusively, with the box plot, we can get the summary statistics about our data. So we can generate these box plots in a R and even in the Excel. So in the later sessions, we will demonstrate you how we can produce a box plot using the code platform. So when looking at a gene expression data table, so this is like a bar plot. So it represents a large number of the samples will be look like outliers. So this type of distribution will interfere with many of the statistical tests that are used to analyze any gene expression data. So to reduce this wide range of variation, we can transform this data into the log to transformed values. So at the log scale, now this by transforming the data into the log normalized value, so this data looks normally distributed. And this procedure of the normalization often at times is called as a log scale transformation. So it makes the data more symmetrical. So now let's look at how this log scale transformation affect the gene expression pattern in a data. So let's take one example of one sample. So in this raw data, before the log transformation or before any normalization, we have a lot of genes that have low expressed. And there are some of the genes that are highly expressed. So after the log scale transformation, so this data become normally distributed, and now it is easier to compare the values between the samples without losing the details of low expressed values and still see the highest and the lowest values. So it will be very useful to make any accurate assumption regarding our data. And now we can apply different parametric statistical tests that actually required a normal distribution of the data. So the another useful normalization method is quantile normalization that is used for various NGS or microarray data analysis. So this is one of the this is most useful when you have number of the conditions that you want to compare, assuming the sample in each of these conditions are biological replicates. So as in this example, we have multiple samples in each of these two conditions. The two conditions like here is indicated, one in the green, the other one is light orange color. So, but the quantile normalization do. So it arranges the expression values in a similar order between the samples and aligns their means. So this type of normalization data can help us to understand the different kind of genes within a data. So how it will do? So now let's look at this example. Here we can see majority of the genes are under the normal, have normal distribution. So the reason is that these genes are perform normal functioning within the cell. Then we have some of the genes that have low expression. We can consider it as maybe a technical noise. So then we have a subset of genes that produce a significant signal, and these genes are actually important to analyze. So what would be the effect of the normalization? Let's look at one example. Here we have two kind of samples. So like yellow color is indicated by ER positive samples, that is ER breast cancer, estrogen receptor breast cancer subtype, and the blue colors are indicated the triple negative breast cancer subtype. So it seems like, looking at the raw data, it looks like that this particular gene is highly expressed in one condition in comparison to the other. But on normalization, so this difference just disappears. So this shows why normalization of data is important to drive any biological interpretation. So now let's see how we can perform log normalization of the data in the Excel. So I would like to share a data set with you. Just I would like to share this sample. So the data set here we are going to use is the same data set that we have derived from the RNA-seq analysis. That we have obtained our RNA-seq analysis. So I'm sharing the link. So you just download this data so that I can demonstrate how we can transform this data into the log normalization. So once you are able to download this data, just let me know. This is the same data set that we have obtained from the pipeline that we have run last time, that is RNA-seq pipeline. So if you're able to download this data, just let me know. Okay, Hamza, great. So anyone else? So just copy this data in an Excel. So okay, last time I have told you that the columns are representing the samples and rows are representing the gene. So how we can perform log normalization on this data? So now just look at this. So if every one of you are able to paste your data in the Excel, just let me know that. Okay, that's great, Kingston. So this is a simple formula, that is ln. Then take a number. Suppose I just want to transform this number. So I'm selected this. Then we are adding +1 before performing log normalization. So I will tell you the reason, especially in case of where there is a 0 value. So it is difficult. You cannot perform log normalization when there are the 0 values in the data. So it like if you just compute the log normalization of the zero, so it will it will compute the infinite value. So that's why we are adding just one number. So then if I drag this value, as I have the how many columns I have, means how many samples I have is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So till the 11th till again the next 11 columns, I can drag this value. So the last is L1 column. So So as we have values till the L column, so from this we know that till L value we able to transform this value. So if you select all these value and then you drag from this end till the values for which you want to transform these value to the log normalization. So you just need to drag it. So I'm just doing this normalization for this, and for all the samples we can drag the samples till where we want to perform the log normalization. So this is how we this is also simple that we can perform a log normalization on in Excel only. So every one of you able to do this log normalization. So let me repeat just let me know you the formula. So just write equal, then write ln. Ln means it indicating log normalization. Then in the this bracket, within bracket, just write select the column or select the cell for which you want to transform the value. So like at the start, I just want to transform the cell that is B2. So then +1, I have added +1. So because there is, you can't perform log normalization on the zero values. So as we are looking at here this table, so this is how actually these to compute the log normalization of these zero values, we have just added +1 in every single sample. So this is how you can perform normalization. So just let me know whether you were able to do that. So once you just done the log normalization, then just drag this column till till the columns, like here we have 11 columns. So just drag it till the next 11 columns. Then from those, once you're able to do that, then just drag this. You can then you can drag till the for all the samples or the desired samples that you want to perform log normalization. Usually we perform log normalization in whole on the whole data set. So you can drag till the end. So are you getting this? So this is how you can perform log normalization in Excel. So you can. So you just need to write a formula that is equal to then ln, then within bracket you just select the cell for which you want to perform a normalization +1. Then you can drag it till till the columns that you want to perform log normalization, and till the rows accordingly you can also drag till the rows that you want to perform log normalization. So every one of you able to get this, just write your answer in yes or no in the chat. So any one of you able to do this? Please write yes or no. Add it to I, Norman. Yeah, if you log of the one, so in case your question, so lot strong. So specifically in case of the zero, so if you add one into the zero, it would become one. So the log normalization of the one is always zero value. So the next question that you are going asking, so what we what we are doing with the log normalization. So if you're looking at this data, so I'm just taking like you just look at this data. So here you will find your maximum values like 67. Your minimum value could be, especially if the selected data. So if you're looking at this table, so you got the maximum value like 61, and the minimum value could be 9, could be 2.1, so 1.92. So this is a very large variation. So if you plot this, if you plot a graph for this, so it will not be a normally distributed. So when you, if you're looking at this normal log transform values, so now let's look at these values after the log normalization. Okay, so now look at these values. So the maximum range that you are getting like that is 4 point something or 3 point something. So this is how actually it reduces that large variance that is occurring, that is taking place for a one gene in multiple samples. So it is just reducing that first thing, the log normalization it is doing, that it brings a large variation in the data into the small variation. Like here now we have the values within like 1.0 something minimum, and the maximum value here we are getting like 4.13 or 4.4. So this is what it's doing. So the second is it is transforming in it making a data more normally distributed. So if you plot these graph against this, then you will you can even look into that whether the data become normally distributed or not. So I hope I'm address your question.
Yeah, there's a comment, Harpreet, if you can check from Lordstrong, Khano.
Okay, I get what it does. I would, however, love to see its formula to better appreciate it. So it is just adding a plus one within your value, every single value. So then it computed the log computed the log normalization. Just computed the log. So this was the formula here. This is ln means it is computing the log of your value. So we are just adding plus one with that value, plus one only because our data contains zero values. So that for the zero values we able to attain some numerical value. So otherwise, so if I'm just selecting this, so let me just show you. So if I'm taking the log of this, sorry. So this is like L6. So now you will get. So otherwise it don't compute log value. That's why we adding just plus one. So we are adding this plus one in every single value. So it won't affect the actual pattern of these values. So we just added zero so that we can handle the zeros. Otherwise it doesn't give you any numerical value. I hope Lansdowne you got your answer. Is it? It is clear to you now, Lordstone? Okay, that's great. So if no, let's move ahead in the presentation. So now let's understand what is dimensionality reduction and why it is important. So if we have a gene expression table, that like here we have 2 genes and then we have 8 samples. So so we can visualize these samples in a 2-dimensional space by taking the expression value of these 2 genes across 8 samples, like this one. Here genes are the dimensions, like x-axis, and the gene 2 as x-axis and gene 1 as y-axis, while samples are as objects, so that is indicated by these dots. So to incorporate additional information, so for instance we have more genes, like the gene so like here we have the gene 3. Here we can also add this gene, and then we can visualize that how our samples looks like based on the expression of these genes. So then we can get a three-dimensional plot like this. So but in our gene expression data table, we have not only just the 3 dimensions. So like in our gene expression table, we have thousands of the genes. So how we can visualize the variance between sample using the information or the expression of those genes from the data. So how we can view the samples in a multi-dimensional space, which is r raised to the power almost n. So the answer is that we cannot visualize with these large number of the genes. We cannot visualize our data using the information from all the large number of genes as such. The reason for this is that we are limited by the visualization only in the 3 dimensions. So what we can do in this scenario, so the first thing that we can do, that we reduce the multi-dimension, that is these multi-dimensional genes. So we reduce those multi-dimensional data into the 2 or the 3 dimensions that best represented data. So this is what it is called a dimensionality reduction. When we reduce the large number of dimensions into the 2 or the 3 dimensions to get insight about the data set as a whole. So PCA is one of those methods that will help us to visualize this multi-dimensional gene expression data in the form of a scatter plot and see what gene expression patterns show about the data. So now let's try and understand how this PCA works. So in case of the PCA, we are looking for a plane or some vector that best explains the variance of our data. So for example, here we have a data set that have low variance. So here the samples are close together to each other within this data set. So then we have another data set which have high variance. As you see, this variance is not fully explained by the x-axis or the y-axis. But what algorithm is doing, that is draw the lines that shows maximum variance of the data. So these vectors through the multi-dimensional space, they actually maximize the variance of the data, and they are called as principal components. So then we can have multiple principal components like PC1, PC2, PC3. So eventually we can visualize our data by projecting it into the space of the 2 or the 3 dimensions that explains maximum variance of the data. So as I already told you that PCA could have large set of components. It could be PC1, PC2, then till the PC and so on. So here in case of the principal component, the first component, like here, the PC1, it explains the maximum variance in the data. While the next component, that is PC2, it will explain the majority of the explain the next largest variability, and this is and so on, all these components that are reducing from this second to the till the last, there they will explain the variability with the reduced power. So now let's run a PCA pipeline on T-Bioinfo platform to get a better understanding regarding PCA analysis. So everyone, so content, okay, added to I. So there are different methods with which you can perform quantile normalization. These methods are available in the bioconductor, specifically for the R packages. So you can perform quantile normalization using various packages that are available in the R. So now let's go to the our T-Bioinfo server and let's perform PCA. So Aditya, do I address your question? Do I am able to address your question? Okay, that's great. So every one of you log into this T-Bioinfo platform. So just let me know, just write your answer yes or no in the chat, and let's perform principal component analysis and quantile normalization using T-Bioinfo platform. Pre-process core package, there is a there is a package that is pre-process core package that is specialized for the quantile normalization. Apart from there is lemma package, even within the lemma, and with the lemma package you can also perform quantile normalization, but the pre-process core package is specially designed for the quantile normalization. Hamza, then Orino. Okay, so if everyone of, so I think lemma you can find the lemma you can find a quantile normalization methods. So if you are on this page, so here, so first to perform, apart from that, I think you can perform quantile normalization even under utility section on this T-Bioinfo platform. So let me just go to, let's just perform a quantile normalization here only. So just let me go to again to this. Okay, so under the data mining, you will find there different options like supervised analysis, unsupervised, then utility, then factor regression and differential expression. So let's go to the utilities option. With the utility, you can perform various kind of normalization. You can even perform batch correction, then quantile normalization. So no, if every one of you have this data, that data set that we have already downloaded. So just upload that file. I have provided you the file that is to perform log normalization. You just take same file and just uploaded that file. Just go with the create utility analysis pipeline. So once you are on this pipeline, just upload your gene expression data table that is in text format. So you cannot upload your Excel file. So you just upload your text file that I have provided you with the URL. So if you're able to upload this data, just let me know. So I can start it from again. So here under the area of the analysis, under the data mining, there is an option that is utilities. Just click on the utility, and then the first option that you will get the file upload. Here you just upload that file that is available in the text format that I have provided you, expression genes, FPKM values. So once you upload this file, so are you with me? Normal editor. Okay. So once you upload this file, let's click on a continue. Then you will get an option start. Just click on a start. So if you want to perform only quantile normalization, so you can perform quantile normalization here under the utility option. So it as our initial table that is only contain the FPKM value. So first option it is asking you want to transform table into the log normalization. So we will do the yes. Then it will ask the threshold. In this case, we are selecting the threshold 5. Now, as we have already observed in our data, so our values after log normalization, our value varying like from 5 to 1, so or 5 to 0. So we are selecting the 5. So it is depending on the your data that represent minimum or maximum value. So after performing the quantile normalization, that the next option that is getting highlighted here is PCA. So let's perform PCA. So it is first asking filter the threshold. So here we are like selecting by maximum 25%. Then it asking transform table into LN. So we as during the quantile normalization, we have already transformed table into the log normalization. So here we selecting it no. So then the method it is asking SVD. So we are selecting this. Then it asking standard table row before PCA. So already yes. Standard tables column yes. So just save it. Then end this pipeline. So here what we have done, first perform quantile normalization, then we have performed PCA. So just select, save this pipeline and run this pipeline. So are you with me? So now we can check whether our pipeline get completed or not. So it will take a bit time just to complete it. So meanwhile, let's just wait. And so every one of you able to run this pipeline. First, we as this data is contain FPKM value, so we have first we have transformed into the log normal values. Then we have performed quantile normalization. Once our data get quantile normalized, so then we have performed PCA, that is principal component analysis. So principal component analysis. So in the principal component analysis, we are actually doing the dimensionality reduction that we, as we have thousands of the genes. So eventually it component. So the first component in case of the PCA will represent the higher, that will represent the best variance. So once we get the results, then we yes, it should give, if you have providing the same parameters, then it will give you same results. this is the same thing if you're providing the same parameters. So now my pipeline get completed, I hope.
So there's a question, Harpreet.
Okay.
Aditayo is asking.
Does this give us the same result if we do PCNR? It will give us same result if we are defining the same parameters. So if you change the parameters, in that case, your result will change. Otherwise, result should remain the same. So now it completed that. Let me just do it.
Dr. Harpreet, there is a question from Norman. He says that I can proceed after clicking quantile normalization. It is saying click only, but I can't find the OK button. Click OK, but I can't find the OK button. Can you refresh the page, Norman, once and start again?
So you can start it again. So I have to just wait for the PCA. Get completed. So apart from that, let me do. I mean, we can also perform PCA with the R library. So in that case, we must have a quantile normalized data. So I'm also just running that pipeline. So here I'm just showing a demo. You just need not to run that pipeline. So as I have bit of time, so meanwhile I can run that pipeline here. So under the unsupervised analysis, so here I can upload my data that is already quantile normalized. So this is if you have if you have already normalized data, so still you can perform. We have two options under this utilities. So we can perform PCA alone as well as we can also perform with PCAR library. So I'm selecting here the two components. So meanwhile, so let me see my previous line. So I'm just not getting output here. I mean, it's completed. There is some issue with the pipeline. So I have to look into the input data that I'm using. So as this data contain a blank line at end of the file, it can create a problem. So I have to remove this blank line from my data, and let me run this pipeline again. So if any one of you just check your files, input file, so there should not be any blank line. So if you are also not able to get your output file, just we can create these utility pipelines again.
So I hope everyone got that. So you have to just remove that line from the.
I think you are getting the same file. So just check your file. If you're able to get results output, so then you no need to make this to remove this blank line. So in case you have same you are not able to get your output, then just remove that blank line from end of the file and just rerun this this pipeline again. Here first we with the start, With the start, we get the OK. Then we perform the quantile normalization. Here we want to transform it. Then we have select the threshold 5. Then we can save this. Then we go to the move to the PCA. Here the filter we used. So for instance, I'm not using any filter here just to get so that I'm able to get results. So I'm not selecting the 25%. So here I'm not giving any threshold. So I'm just changing that parameter as well. So, and I'm running this pipeline again. PCA.
Dr. Harpreet, Norman is asking
Okay.
what were the parameters?
The parameters that you are giving like a threshold values. So here, as in this case, in the
It's
first
okay.
case, we
It's
are
okay. I got them like when you repeated the process.
okay, then it's fine. So just make sure your file is not contain any blank line. In case if it has a blank line, it won't produce any result. So like here, I have not checked the file that it contain a blank line. So most of time you can also face this issue when you are unable to get any output. The maximum time the issue is always like the input file. Just let me wait for this to complete this pipeline. So just make sure your file should not contain any blank line. Though it's showing completed, but the 100% processing. But the reason is that this pipeline get failed because I have a blank line at end of my file. So in filter threshold, we can just remove this factor here, and we are not doing that. So are you able to got your results? Just let me know. So any one of you able to got your output results? So just if you able to obtain results, just post yes or no. So what is showing it, whether it's 100% or something like that? So let me just paste it here.
So after the session, we will also email everyone, I guess, the files and also the
Okay.
results just in case.
Just remove that. I mean, so it represents, so let me just show here, but it represent PC1, PC2. So like here, we have just as we have, if you're able to obtain results, so just the problem is usually that it is contain a blank line. So before you proceed for your pipeline, you just make sure this pipeline should, your input file should not contain any blank line. So these kind of results that we will obtain, so it's like the first component, that is here it is representing in the first the second column. First column of course representing the name of the samples. So the second column it representing that how much variation is represented by this. So like here PC1 representing 50, as I have already told you that PCA have multiple components, but always the first component will represent the maximum variance. Then the next component will contain successive variance, like here 11%, 11%. So it is getting reduced with every single other components. So this is how we will obtain kind of, so with these 5 components. So let's how we can actually visualize these PCA in form of scatter plot. So to generate a scatter plot, just select these values. Like I'm just I want to draw a scatter plot with the 2 components, that is with 2 dimensions. So I will select it, and so are you able to get, any one of you able to got the result? So just meanwhile, because it's a otherwise we will give you a correct file so that you able to run this. I will just save my file and will give you. So meanwhile, you just look at how we can perform. We can visualize this. So like here, we have these 2 components. We select and then we will just draw a scatter plot. So you need not to select the name of these components. So then once you are here, we can also just remove these. Then select the data. So while selecting data, we can define, but graph I have used, that is scatter plot. I'm using a scatter plot. Just let me, I can just show it again. So just removing this. Okay. So we have selected these 2 components for these 6 samples. So here I have just selected this, and then I have inserted the scatter plot. Once we able to obtain this scatter plot, now we can play with it and we can see which sample representing which kind of sample. So like here, we just click on this, we will find the select data. So under the select data, we can define what is our x-axis, what is our y-axis. So like here, we can add. So like here we have knocked on samples. So x-axis here is like, this is what x-axis. So then we can define the y-axis. For knockdown, this is our y-axis. So we can save it. Then for the series, we can edit. So for this, here we are considering it as a control. And here the control for the control sample, our x-axis would be this, these. And for the y-axis, we can select this as our y-axis, as we are representing just so I have just done something wrong here. Just let me I think I just clicked something else. So let me just do it again. So now I can edit my data. Go to the select data. So here we can add, like first series is knocked on. Here my x-axis is just this. And I have to add my y-axis. For the second component is as y-axis. So then the other, we can edit it and named it as control. Then we can define our series for the x-axis. For the control, these are PC1 as our x-axis. And then this is our y-axis, PC2 as y-axis. So yes, so this is how we can look at. So if we looking at, I can remove this, I think, these lines. So if we look at this scatter plot, so on this scatter plot, we can see where our knockdown samples and where are our control samples. So like in this case, if we looking at the control samples are together, so and our knockdown, two of the samples are in the same group or under the same dimensions, while the one sample is actually, we can consider it as a outlier. So as it is just getting separated from its original class. So this is the first principal component analysis. Yeah, so in this case, actually, there is clear separation of these classes of within the sample based on these just two components. So here we have considered only two components which represent maximum variance. So even here we able to look at this particular sample is actually, the one sample is actually representing the outlier. So principal component analysis is always the first type of analysis that we would like to perform, to just to check whether there is any difference between our data or they are just the same. So this is always the whenever you get any data, so to check whether you can perform any kind of analysis, you always first go with the principal component analysis, just to check whether these there is any difference between these different categories of the sample. So any one of you able to got the results? Just in case if you're not, I will share my our correct file with you just at the forum, so that you can perform your analysis yourself. So in case if you don't get any output still.
Yes, Dr. Harpreet, and if you can save this file also, we will send this file also so that they have a sample file to look at, just in
Okay,
case
okay,
it's
sure.
confusing for anyone. And
Okay, okay, sure.
if you're concluding PCA, I just wanted to ask anyone and everyone here that did you guys get why we are doing PCA and what is PCA and how it is done? Okay, Eddie Tayo. I think it would be nice to try and then see it for yourself. But in conclusion, if I have to say a few words, then I would just say that so in case there are no clear boundaries after PCA. So what we are trying to do here is, of course, trying to draw a boundary, as you said, to separate two classes. So many times what happens is that this is a small sample size, as you said, as you can see, and the number of variables are also less. But in real time situation, when you're plotting thousands of genes and then there are so many samples, the PCA looks very it's all over the place. So you cannot draw a clear separation from PCA in such cases. That's true. So that's why we do downstream analysis, more analysis of data, that we will cover in the next session about unsupervised and supervised machine learning methods. So we do hierarchical clustering and all those methods to see whether there is some separation that we wanted to see. So if the question is like, if I'm looking for biomarkers, then I would be looking at these separations, because I want to separate my samples into different categories. So that's one of the part of data mining, and that is what we did today. And I'll leave it to now Dr. Harpreet to take the next
I hope
part.
you got your results even with that file. Even I think that it just takes a time and it still produce the results. So just look at your pipeline. Just again, just refresh this pipeline. I hope you will get the results. So just otherwise, so let me just you can check your result, and then you can draw a scatter plot based on two components. So now let's move ahead with the presentation. So beside this, PCA is already, as Dr. Mohit have told you, this is very important. So PCA is also considered as one of the unsupervised machine learning algorithm. So now let's take on statistical analysis. So to demonstrate it, just let me just give a let's consider an example that we have two groups, that is group 1 and group 2, based on a gender. So whether we can differentiate them, so we can consider different parameters like height, weight, or different eating habits to differentiate these two groups. So what would be the simplest method that with which we can differentiate these two groups would be the t-test or t-statistics. So now what is this t-test? So look at this formula. So 1 and 2 is representing the group 1 and group 2. So here x1 and x2 is representing the mean of group 1 and x2 representing the mean of the group 2. Then we have n1 and n2. It represents the size of the groups. Like in our example, we have 50 and 50 samples. So then S is actually that indicates the variance within those two groups. Then the T statistics that represents significance difference between the group means. So there is some of the important aspects for any t-test. Whenever you are going to perform t-test, you should consider these things. One, first, when you want to perform t-test or t-statistics, your data must be normally distributed. That is, it should follow a well-shaped curve. Then the next factor that is important in the t-test, that is p-value. So it indicates the label of the significance. So p-value is actually the probability of obtaining a result that is at least by chance. So in case of the statistical analysis, p-value less than 0.05 is considered as significant p-value. So then the next important aspect is fold change. So it defines the ratio between the two it is define the ratio of values between two conditions. So like we are we are comparing the for quantity A and the B. Then the fold change of the here the fold change is considered of the condition A with respect to the condition B. So just let's take an example how we can apply statistical analysis on a biological data. So here we have two conditions, that is two breast cancer subtypes, that is one is ER positive, the other one is triple negative. So ER positive, in the case of the ER positive, there is a estrogen receptor, while in the case of the triple negative, the three important receptors are not present in the cell membrane. So this is just a one difference that's what ultimately makes one form of cancer, this breast cancer subtype as more aggressive, the other is less aggressive. So now let's see how we can differentiate it. So in the biomedical data, there is some of the important factors that make it difficult to identify differentially expressed genes. Like as already we have seen, we have thousands of the genes for each of the sample. Then even for a sample, there is in each group there is a significant, could be a significant variation for the expression label data. Then even when there is difference that we have observed, it is hard to know what will be the significant enough difference to say that these are truly differentially expressed genes. So to overcome these kind of challenges, so we have to turn to statistical analysis. Now let's see how we can perform t-test in our Excel. So just as we have this table, so I'm just copying this and pasting into. So let's consider this as one condition. I just have to look into it. Okay. So this is how, let me just show you how we can perform this t-test. So just here with this table, it's exactly not the triple negative table. So just as you have already this table, so just let's consider this as condition 1 and this as consider 2, condition 2. So in Excel, if you just apply t test, if you write this equal to t test, then it will ask you first array. So like here for this gene, this is the first array. So then it will ask you array second, that is second group. So here we considering this as a second group. And then the next it is asking the tails. Tail is whether you want to see whether that is the two tail test, that is one gene is up regulated and other is down regulated. So we are considering 2, and then type is 3. So as we are applying t test, so eventually it will give us a t statistics, that is p value. So if you drag this, so you will find, so just you can this drag this till the end, and what it indicated, it's indicated the p value. So as I have already told you, so based on the even the p value, you can sort these values. So if the p value is less than 0.05, that would be considered as significant. Minimum the p value, maximum it is considered as more significant. So like here, this gene is not significant. While if we looking at these two genes, as the p value is less than 0.05, these genes would be considered as significant and these two would be non-significant. So are you able to perform t-test? So these are, it will ask you the type of the test. So this is like if you go through that, I'm here using a pair t-test. So for this t-test, the value, the type is 3. So that's why I have just that's consider this value as 3. I hope Kingston, I'm able to address your question. So are you able to perform t-test in Excel? So we can perform these kind of analysis even on R. So here I'm just showing a simplest way how we can perform statistical analysis in the Excel. So are you able to do this? The second important factor that we have already told you, that is fold change. So fold change, how we can measure the fold change? So Norman is asking, should I repeat? Okay, just okay. So let me just here, but I have done the t-test. I have just write equal, then t-test. So once you get the t-test, then it is asking first array. First array means it's asking the first group. So here our first group is this one. That is yellow one. I have highlighted this yellow one. So then it is asking the array 2. So I am selecting the array 2 till this. Sorry, till this. Then it is asking the tail. Tail indicating that whether this is a, I mean, you want to pair and it is two-tailed or just a one-tailed. One-tailed, it is means we are just saying that gene, whether gene is differentially expressed or not. We are not just indicating that whether it is upregulated or downregulated. So then for that, tails here we are using two-tailed test. Then it is asking the type. So kind of what kind of t-test we are using. So for this pair t-test, we are type 3. So here we are using 3. So once you do this, so then you can drag this for all yours, or you just click on this. So then even based on, if I just use a, so we can add filter. So then based on the p-value, that is, as I have already told you, in case of the p-value, smallest the p-value, more is the significance. So based on the p-value, we can sort these genes. So then next is the fold change. So how we will can compute the fold change? So this is, so we have to take the mean. Sorry, here is the average. So with the average of, so average, here we are taking the average of this, then we are dividing. So this is what the fold change is doing, that in case of the fold change, we are just taking the ratio of the mean of that particular group. So this is how we can compute the fold change. So in case of the fold change, if it indicating 2.7, so particularly as we are dividing condition, this condition versus this. So it is, this particular gene is significantly upregulated. The positive is it indicating that, so more than one value, it indicating that our particular gene is upregulated in this condition in comparison to the second condition. So here less than one value, it indicating this particular gene is significantly downregulated in condition 1 in comparison to the condition 2. So I hope every one of you able to got this. So this is what the formula. Here we are computed the average of this particular group, then we divide with the average of the second group. So this is how we can compute both t-test and fold change in the Excel. So t-test, no, let's go back to the presentation. So t-test cannot be applied in every single condition. As we have already told you that t-test required your data must be normally distributed. So where it get failed, particularly in case of the gene expression labels, especially when your gene expression is in are in the read counts. So those read counts are actually not normally distributed. So for that, there are the different packages in the R as well as on our T-Bioinfo platform. So like DSEC2. So with the DSEC2 and AGR, you can calculate differentially expressed genes for the data which is not normally distributed, like especially for these packages like DSEC2 and AGR, they actually use the internal algorithm to perform normalization. So they always you cannot perform your FPChem, you cannot perform differential gene expression for the FPChem values using AGR or DSEC. It always required the count values. So you can perform your differential gene expression analysis using AGR and DSEC for the particularly where then your data contain the read counts. So if you have any question till now, I think we are over the time.
So,
Yeah, I think we are over the time now. Okay. So,
yeah.
so in the next session, we will talk about regression and factor regression analysis, and we will also go through the differential gene expression analysis using DSEC on a T-Bioinfo platform, and we will also go through the quantile normal, machine learning. So in the next session, we will cover all those things. So I think let's end this session here. So just go through the transcriptomics 2 course. We have most of these, we have talked of in those courses, all those statistical analysis and t-test. So the details of all these topics that we have discussed today, you can find all details in the transcriptomics 2 course. So
There is
this
a
is all
question
from
from Aditayo. So it's not likely we make use of the t-test for our experiments.
So if you if your data contain FPKM values or normalized values, already quantile normalized, so in that case you can use t-test, specifically not direct student t-test. There are Wilcoxon t-test and Welch t-test that you can use when your data is normally distributed, only in that condition. So if you have read count data, in that case you can perform DSEC or HR. So otherwise you can perform your statistical t-test on the data that contain normalized value. I hope Aditoy, it is clear to you. Yeah, this is for the normalized test. Only t-test, you can apply the t-test when you have normalized values and your data is normally distributed. This is the first condition to apply a t-test. And for DSEC, yes, DSEC as well as HR, you can apply when you have raw read counts. So I think this from my side, and we will talk about other topics in our next sessions.
So thank you everyone for participating and staying all this way. And the everything that we discussed today, even the t-test and why doing t-test and why not doing t-test, is explained in transcriptomics 2. So the assignment for the next class is to finish transcriptomics 2 or get acquainted with transcriptomics 2. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you